This is Chris Schutte. I will move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Zalta will second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, are there any objections to adopting the agenda? And hearing none, the agenda stands approved. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. We have before us the minutes from the April 22nd, 2021 for AMATS Policy Committee meeting for approval. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
This is Schutte. I'll make a motion to approve or accept, whichever is appropriate, the meeting minutes from April 22.
All right. Do I have a second?
Zalta second.
Okay. We have any changes or discussions on the minutes as submitted? All right. Hearing none. Any objections to approving the minutes? Okay, hearing no objections, the April 22nd, 2021 minutes are approved. Moving right on into item number 5, the action items for today. Action item 5A, the 2022 safety target recommendations. Craig, do you want to give us a quick rundown on those, please?
I will, and I just want to make sure folks are able to see the screen that I'm hopefully showing up correctly from home here. I'm working from home today, and that it's large enough print for folks to be able to read most of it.
So I can see down to item number 2, Craig. If there's something below that, I'm not seeing it.
You see the memo? Okay, and I'll scroll as need be. But so, so the safety targets in a previous authorization bill, federal highways, and Congress passed a number of performance measures that MPOs such as ours need to pay attention to and track, etc. We had travel time reliability and some CMAQ ones. Our safety ones are the only ones that need to be looked at and revisited every single year. And so what we normally have done in the past, and as you'll see, we're suggesting the same now, is that the state has safety targets that they have to set as well and track. And the choices are we can either utilize our own target for each performance measure in our area, or we can agree to support the state target. And what we've done in the past and what we're suggesting again now is that because the state is tracking these performance measures, this particular one, the safety ones, and they have the data and they collect the data, and because I am involved with, as is the Municipal Traffic Engineering Department, we're both involved with helping set the state's safety targets, and we have input into that. We are suggesting that we again support the state's targets. So I've given you on the memo here, you can see the targets suggested for 2022, and then below that you'll see what the targets have been in the last few years, and you'll see that for the most part they're trending downwards. They went up a bit in 2020, but the target was down a bit in 2021, and so we're continuing that downward trend, which is obviously always a good thing when we're talking about lowering the number of fatalities and the fatality rate, etc. So I do have the state's specific safety targets behind it. It's the same numbers, it's just their memo. But we took this before the TAC 2 weeks ago, and they recommended to follow staff's recommendation, which was to support these the state's targets on these. Happy to answer questions. I'm sure that there are other people on the line, such as Mr. Amundsen, who could answer more questions if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, but there they are, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you, Craig. Any questions or comments from members of the committee?
I think both John Weddleton and Chris Schutte have their hands up.
Oh, there. Mr. Schutte, go ahead.
Thank you. Craig or Chair, the state targets that we mimic, these are statewide targets, or are they specific to the MPO?
And I believe we were asked this question at the TAC, and the answer is they're statewide targets, I believe. Is that correct, Jim?
That is correct.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you. And as a follow-up, have we always, for the MPO, have we always just adopted the state's targets, or have there ever been periods where we've diverged?
No, we've always supported the state targets, mostly for those reasons that I mentioned earlier, that they're collecting the data and we don't have staff, et cetera, capability to collect the data, and we're involved in helping set their measures and their numbers. So we're pretty confident that these are good ones for us.
Okay, and then last one, I promise, they're all related. Thank you for the history. What is the I guess outcome or penalty for missing targets?
So there are some penalties for the state if they don't meet their measures. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but there are no penalties for the MPO for not meeting these targets. And that's how the feds set it up when they set it up. Can't give you a lot of insight on that.
Craig, if I may,
Yes, please.
through the chair, if the state doesn't meet the targets, then the federal FHWA Region 9 requires us to increase our HSIP percentages for the next year, which is the specific funding targeting improving safety.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Anything else, Chris?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Welton, I saw you handed your hand up for a moment. Oh, there it is. John, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess two questions. One, what are these used for kind of within the, I guess within the whole process? I think Jim touched on some of that. Maybe that's all of it. And thinking, as we move forward writing LRTP that, comes from the municipality side planning department, I think having something in there about safety measures would be important, so that instead of using state numbers, we would have something that's more specific to Anchorage. And what would be benefits and perils in that? And that might be too big of a discussion for this item, but if we could get some insights, it would be helpful.
Well, I guess I would start by answering that, in the work session we had earlier today on the TIP criteria, as you remember, we tweaked things around a bit to put the most points towards the projects that relate to safety. We don't yet have language in there that specifically talks about specific safety measures, but those criteria are designed, or the performance measures are designed for the MPO to help us focus on doing things that will, improve these numbers, so that the number of fatalities would go down and serious injuries and all that sort of stuff. So they're designed to implore us to continue to concentrate on projects that improve safety in our area to reduce serious injuries and fatalities. That's kind of the big picture idea. We don't have them tied to say this project will reduce serious injuries by point whatever, because it's just a little more challenging to do, I guess, at an MPO level. And I don't know if Jim has any further insight into what they're doing with their performance measures and how they track them at the state level, but that's kind of our general idea on how we utilize these performance measures.
Through the chair, the state, in fact, has a comprehensive committee group that regularly goes through each of the targets and goes through the actual accident data each year to try and refocus so that we're putting our HSIP money where it best reduces our targets, where we've seen bumps going in the wrong direction.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I would add to that, as Jim well knows, when the state group gets together to set these performance targets, it's a pretty long meeting where we go through every single thing in the plan and talk about whether that's still relevant, what FAST in Fairbanks and AMATS can do to help things, and usually it's in the area of some of the public awareness campaigns that we do. So it's a pretty extensive thing that tracks back to these measures.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on this action item?
This is Miss. My hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Altel.
Thanks. And this is just my lack of knowledge around what's going on around the state. But do other jurisdictions that participate in setting these safety measures, do they have plans like Vision Zero and other things that are driving their local safety goals?
I don't honestly know if Fairbanks has a Vision Zero plan. I'm not sure.
And the reason for the question is because there is a local Vision Zero plan that drives our local safety metrics within our AMATS region. You know, in some ways, that's just not reflected here if that's not something that's being done throughout the other communities. So I just wanted to kind of get some clarity on that.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Altel?
Nope, just want to get that on the record as a concern about how these measures apply to Anchorage when it has a Vision Zero plan. Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions from the committee?
I see Mr. Schutte has his hand raised. I don't know if that's.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you. Just as a follow-up question to, I think, where Ms. Weddleton was going, Craig or Jim, what are the additional obligations or responsibilities that potentially would come if the AMATS chose to set its own targets or performance measures?
Well, we would just need to track them. So we would have to have the ability to track those measures in front of you inside the AMATS area, and you know, just keep up on it. And we don't currently have that data in an easy format, and we don't have staff in order to do it. So that's why we haven't done it yet. But you need to track it. You need to set it like we do here, and report that to FHWA and let them know how we're doing on the targets, etc.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, there was through the Vision Zero work that we did, there was extensive data dumps from Anchorage Police Department and I think from the Fire Department that all fed into the data modeling that they did with that project. Are those data sources adequate to reveal these performance measures?
I would have to check with our traffic engineering group. They're the ones who do the data collection. I don't know that they track all of these numbers as we need them to. I mean, if I remember correctly, when we first had to start doing this, we asked about it, and at the time we were told that they didn't track all these numbers in town here. But I'd have to double check that.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be interesting to know, because while it doesn't line up perfectly, I know that the collision data that was shared through the Vision Zero work that Kittleson did is generally aligned with these, although there may be some tweaks. And all of the data sources for that work was the available APV and I think AFD sources. Of course, the state was a source too. It would be interesting to me to look at that, and the reason I think it's interesting is because of all the points that both John and Meg raised. You know, within the MPO, there are different conditions than there are statewide, and at some point, it seems like there probably is a benefit to recognizing the uniqueness of the MPO or the Anchorage MPO and having corresponding performance measures. Thank you.
Probably wouldn't hurt, just from Department of Transportation perspective, to replace the traffic engineers that you've lost over the last year towards that effort as well.
Amen.
Just saying. Maybe that'll be for the next administration to handle. So, okay. Last call for any final questions from the committee on this action item. All right. I don't see any raised hands. So we're going to hop over to the public side of the house. Do we have any comments from the public regarding this action item? Please remember, if you do like to speak up, you got 3 minutes and we'd love to hear from you. Okay, Craig, I'm not seeing any raised hands. You're telling me it's instantaneous now, correct?
Yep, they're here if they're here, and I don't see any comments or raised hands, so.
Okay, we will move on. So what is the will of the committee regarding this action item?
Move to approve, Weddleton.
Okay, thank you. We have a second.
This is Shooty. I was hoping someone else would jump in, but I'll second Mr. Weddleton.
All right. Any objections to the approving the motion? All right. Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Craig.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to action item 5B, the committee bylaw update. Craig, why don't you give us a spiel on this one?
I will do that. Let me get to the right memo. Okay, hopefully you see the memo that says 5B in front of you. As we were looking at our bylaws for the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee, we noticed some things that were a little different than some of the other bylaws, the freight and the bike and ped. And we just wanted to kind of, standardize the language in all three. So for the most part, it was relatively innocuous changes, just to kind of make them all the same. One little bit different was the term limits of the CAC and the bike and ped were 2 3-year terms, and the freight committee had 3 3-year terms. So we thought it made more sense to move it to the 3 3-year. Some of these committees have sort of specialized folk on there, and can be challenging to find someone after a short 6-year stint on there, relatively short 6-year stint. So making the 3 3-year terms kind of helps out. In addition, we had some language that we added into one of the committees about the telephonic meetings. Our freight committee were kind of hard to get quorums. Those folks are all gainfully employed to different industries for the most part, and meeting during the middle of the day was challenging. So we had the addition of the telephonic meetings clause under their meeting. So we want to standardize that throughout. So those are the main things that we did there. You can see, if you want to, in the breakdown of those bylaws, all of those specific changes, but this memo kind of outlines the main things. And the Technical Advisory Committee thought they agreed and recommended their approval at their last meeting. So happy to answer questions if you have specifics, but otherwise, there it is.
Craig, any comments from the committee from Chris Shooty's dog? Is that your dog, Chris?
That is my dog, yeah. I have 2 of them. And they're making sure someone's not eating the house, I guess.
Oh, it's Craig, okay. Any questions from the committee on this action item? All right, well, I don't speak dog, so any comments from the public on this action item? Okay, I don't hear any comments or questions from the committee or the public. So regarding this action item, what is the will of the committee?
Zalatel, move to approve.
All right, thank you.
Second, Weddleton.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weddleton. I don't hear any objections. Are there any objections to approving the motion at all? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved for item 5B. Okay, Craig, I don't see anything under project and plan updates unless you've got anything last minute. So we will move on to agenda item 7A, the update public involvement plan revision. So Craig, you're going to be talking to this?
I'll start. I believe Mr. Shooty requested that we have a chat about it. This basically was, we had talked recently about, we've been doing these Teams meetings for a long time, over a year. and we're looking forward to getting back into seeing all the smiling faces in one room. But we also know that for some folks, it certainly is a big help to be able to do these things virtually. And dial into the Teams meetings like we're doing right now, whether that is a committee member or a member of the public. And you know, a lot of FHWA's push is on as much public involvement as you can get. So we are trying to work on some version of a hybrid where we can do both in person with making sure we are adequately allowing people to dial in virtually. The public involvement plan, the current AMATS public involvement plan, has some language in there that talks about virtual meetings. But I think we kind of really need to look at it a little more in depth to reflect the state of the world as it is nowadays. So I guess that's just to let you folks know that that's something that will be coming soon to the theater near you as we look at updating our public involvement plan. So that's my beginning of that. I don't know if Mr. Schutte had some thoughts on that or more chatting to be done, or if anyone else wanted to talk about it at all. But that's just kind of broaching the subject with you folks.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to bring this up as a discussion item for a couple of reasons. Craig articulated one of them. Another one is that if you caught it in the previous item, there was the addition of telephonic meetings for the Citizens Advisory Committee. And then additionally, here locally in Anchorage, we're going through some law changes soon, if they haven't already been introduced, that will expand the definition of attendance to allow for virtual attendance, if you will, so that we can reflect the new normal, I think, in the world, certainly in the community, which is hybrid. Life is a little bit hybrid. And as much as I enjoy Craig's smile, I don't always want to be in the same room as him. So at some point, I think it would be beneficial for us to dive into this topic and have the operating procedures and the public involvement plan reflect what I think is happening really across the nation as businesses and schools and others look at all the different ways in which they can increase the available options for participation in public process. So Craig and I chatted about it, and at his recommendation, I wanted to bring this forward for the group to consider.
All right, appreciate your comments. Thank you, Chris. Are there any other comments from the committee on this subject? Okay, I guess if I have a comment to make, I know we have a new administration coming online with the city, and I would prefer, I guess, if we were to make any substantive changes, to have that new administration perhaps weigh in on where it sees the future going. I've talked to Mr. Bronson myself. I know he is very highly in favor, Chris, of enhancing the teleworking options for city employees. So I don't think he is by any means going to make that not an option. And I would expect that he would want to as well have that echoed in the public involvement plan at the AMATS level as well. That said, I think it would behoove us to just take into account the new mayor's input before we finalized out any actions on this, Craig, so that we make sure we've got the next administration's fingerprints on this thing as we move forward over the next 3 years. So that would be my comment on it.
Yeah, we are not in a rush to get this done. This is certainly something that they will be involved in very much. So yeah, absolutely. I do see Ms. Solotel has her hand raised.
Oh, okay, Ms. Solotel, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I do like the idea of exploring a hybrid approach, and particularly something that might be able to be brought forward come about September. I've been working with my community councils, particularly those that are transportation focused, to help them be more involved with AMATS so they're a little bit more aware of what's happening and before it's kind of late in the game. And I think as we've seen with community council participation, either having a hybrid approach or the electronic approach, particularly given the policy committee's time and other times that the committees are meeting for AMATS, it would make it more accessible, particularly those who had to work. I don't foresee a change needed, in this moment, but definitely would like to keep at least a hybrid option on the table so we can increase public participation as much as possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, Craig, we've always had the ability for folks to call into these meetings. Is that a true statement?
Yeah. Years and years ago, Mr. Flynn, Assemblymember Flynn, would routinely travel for work, and he would call into the mayor's conference room. This is so we've always allowed that sort of thing, just like they do at the assembly. We just want to make sure that we're what we do is allow members of the public and committee members to be able to dial in remotely at the same time as we're actually meeting in person, and that we can also capture all the voices in the room for the recording. So everyone, if you're listening in, you can hear the person in the public who gets up in the gallery and wants to speak, sort of thing.
Okay, I would maybe put in just in pencil, if nothing else, a caveat that I think AMAT staff needs to be present if there's going to be an in-person meeting event like a policy committee meeting or a TAC. There's just so much coordination, both technical and otherwise, to setting up that meeting and having it operate efficiently. So, Craig, I guess I would just plant that seed. That
I can guarantee you I'll be in the room.
Okay.
It's so much easier for me to keep track of these things and run the meeting by being in the room. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Mr. Schutte has his hands raised again, or hand raised again.
Mr. Schutte?
No, I actually have both of them up. Thank you.
Oh, there you go again.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that comment about making Craig do more work. I always try to do the same. I think the interesting thing about this conversation that's happened over the past year, especially, is that the platform or the suite of available communication tools for public involvement and just human-to-human interaction has changed so much. And we're certainly light years ahead of Mr. Flynn calling in on a landline. So this idea of providing a platform that can share and capture information, like Teams or Zoom or any of the other ones out there, is just so cool and so appealing from a public engagement, public involvement perspective. In addition to AMATS, there's been a lot of public involvement work that we've done over the past year related to projects in the not only in the transportation planning world, but in the zoning world, land use world as well. And we're finding that this is a tool that is infinitely more powerful sometimes than just people in a room and jotting notes on a giant whiteboard. So for the benefit of all of us doing what we do for the MPO better, I think that having a suite of options available is really in our best interest. And so I appreciate your encouragement on this topic, and I look forward to seeing all of the slick things that the MPO is going to do for public engagement here in the future.
No, absolutely. I think the key will be in the coordination of all these different methodologies of involvement. So a phone call versus an MS Teams versus a Zoom versus a WebEx versus an in-person versus, and Craig, I say all this because quite frankly, I'm going to be looking to you to coordinate the integration of all those different tools into a single meeting in a smooth and seamless way. I wish you luck. That's all I can say.
Well, what I can tell you is this, that I have just about the best person helping me on this with Christine Schutte, who has been doing the research. We are looking at the possibility of doing it with what we have existing, and also looking at other programs that might work better for us. So Christine is very interested in it, which helps that I don't have to assign her something that she's not really interested in. So she's very excited about it. So yeah, we'll get it. And I know with her help, it's going to be great. So yeah.
All right, sounds good. Any other comments from the committee on this particular informational item?
Ms. Solitel with her hand raised again. There you
Leanne,
go.
I don't see her hand until you actually say the name.
And I took it down, so I didn't forget to take it down. I just wanted to share, having moved kind of back to the pre-COVID experience with a committee that gets a lot of interest, is that there's been a lot of disappointment not to be able to watch the committee meeting happen in a remote way, that the recording and attending in person, there is not a call-in option on our committees typically, except for participants, but not for the public, that's been met with a lot of resistance and a lot of disappointment. So I just wanted to share that feedback I had received. It's kind of become an expectation that with this technology, the public should be able to access and see, you know, like the agenda that's up or the items as we're going through them, even if they seem to be posted elsewhere, like on a website, to listen to the recording later. That doesn't seem to be sufficient any longer. So I just wanted to share that that's been the experience as we've moved back as assembly members into our typical work session or committee meetings.
Yeah, and I will say this, you know, right now we know that the easy way to do it is just have all of our meetings in the assembly chambers because they're already wired for sound and video, but it's not completely practical for a lot of time frames that we want to have it. So we're looking at the possibility of whether we're just going to be able to, whether we will get some cameras and stuff and try to get into that age or what. So there are a lot of balls in the air as we try to figure out what's the best method to get our message across to the public and make things, you know, as transparent as we like them to be.
I would just note quickly that the cameras, you know, in terms of like the GCI access, aren't available for our committee meetings typically. And we've had a hard time getting like Facebook or other camera systems to adequately broadcast both sound and video at the same time. So we've tried those things,
Okay.
and in chambers we've run into those issues.
Okay. I can't remember which entity it was, but they showed us the setup that they have that can bring in a big screen and cameras and some microphones, and you get extra microphones, and it's just on a wheeled cart sort of thing. It's yeah, well, basically we're exercising lots of options and seeing which one might work for us, but we will certainly keep you folks in the loop.
Mr. Weddleton, any questions from you?
Not a question, but Craig, you might coordinate with Desiree at the clerk's office because she's looking at some of this too, and you might have better ideas to share with her too, because
Okay.
it's been a bit of a challenge.
All right, thank you. I'll get Christine in touch with her.
Thanks.
All right. Any last minute questions or comments? Mr. Weddleton, I'll assume you've gotten all yours addressed. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just saw your hand up still. Craig, I think that's all. The only, I guess, alibi I would add is in our experience at DOT, video requires bandwidth. Quite frankly, a lot of our MS Team meetings, people did not turn on their cameras because of bandwidth usage concerns. And so I don't know if that'll be an issue for us in the AMATS as we move forward in this regard, but just something to be aware of.
I know that as a fact, last semester having a junior in high school and a freshman in college, I could not get any bandwidth at home. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Bandwidth inequity coming
Yep.
to a theater near you.
Yep.
So.
Thank
Okay.
you.
No other comments from the committee on this? Any comments from the public on this update?
You see Ms. Heil has her hand raised. So
Oh.
Sneaking in.
I got John Weddleton still has his hand raised. I don't know. Cindy, go ahead.
Thanks. I was just wondering if we, over the course of the last year, how much public participation have we actually gotten for the TAC and the policy versus what we've had previous years with in-person? I think it might be nice to see if there was if there was an increase in participation or not, and if there was like no participation. Just because we have access may not necessarily mean it's we have participation. So I just think it'd be very interesting to know what that was, just to help maybe inform the development of the public participation plan.
That's a great point. I know Christine has been posting the sign-up sheet in the chat, and she's certainly been tracking who has dialed in. And of course, she is on leave right now. So, but that is a great point. To we should always be tracking, and we do always track. But who's dialing in, and how many fans we have.
I appreciate the comment too, Cindy. There's a cost to doing this, resource or otherwise, and we want to make sure it's effective. Just because it's nice to have doesn't mean it's effective. So we'll trust that Craig and the staff will chime in to track that kind of metric. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the public? All right. Hearing none. Moving on to committee comments. Do we have any committee comments to add today?
Mr. Chairman, this is Chris. I don't have a comment. I'm going to put someone on the spot. I'd love to get some committee comments from our new member and introduce herself.
Oh, yes. Emma Pokin, Deputy Commissioner. Hello there.
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to introduce myself. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at DEC. I've been here in this position for I think about 1.5 years now. I was previously with the Department of Law. I'm an attorney by training, and I've been in state service since January of 2013. Previously worked with the North Slope Borough and with the court system in Fairbanks. Pleased to be here and to contribute to AMATS work.
All right. Well, welcome, Emma. We're pleased to have you. Okay. Any other?
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying thanks. It took me a minute to get to my unmute button.
All right. All right. Any other committee comments? All right. Hearing none. Any public comments? All right. Well, hearing none there. Do I have a motion to adjourn today?
Mr. Chair, before we get to that,
Yeah.
Can I make one quick comment?
Of course.
Yeah, barring any unforeseen circumstances that I'm not aware of, I think in his official capacity, this may be Mr. Schuete's last meeting with us. And I just, if that's the case, I wanted to thank him for his input into the process. It certainly has helped. And even if I have to sometimes stare into my own reflection with my doppelganger from time to time, you've made things, you've helped things roll along here, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes, Chris, from us as well at DOT, thank you for all you've done with the city and working with the Department of Transportation these last few years.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Chris? Or Craig?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay.
For me, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn today?
So
Chris?
moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Schuete seconds.
All right. Well, Chris Schuete, since you're moving into emeritus status, we'll give you the honor of the seconds. So.
Thank you.
All right. Unless there are any objections to approving the motion, hearing none, the motion is approved. Everybody have a great, safe remainder of your June, and we'll talk again next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.